This is all from Central Asia, former Soviet republics. So the stands, as it were. So we've got 4 pieces here, and then the 2 smaller pieces, one on there and one in the back here. 6 pieces. The TV screen on the left here also cycles you through about 30 or 40 images from the same project. There's a little catalog there which you can also look through with some of the images. So that's the logistics of that. So what is this project about? So Crumbled Empire was about kind of exploring a lot of these spaces as they were, basically in situ. So you kind of come across these places, and for me, photography has to be a bit, there has to be an element of humor to it. And so for me, a lot of these images, you don't get the humor until you actually blow them up to this size. So you kind of, you take a look at this kitchen, for instance, and you go, okay, this is kind of interesting. But then you realize that this is being used as kind of a cover, and you realize that this doesn't even have a door on it. You know, that this is sort of a splash guard, the propane. So, you know, you can read what this says here, and you're also wondering what this boat is about. So this is on the former RLC. So this was, once upon a time, a thriving fishing community, and now not so much. So this is the Kazakh side of the RLC in Aralsk. There's also an Uzbek side to the RLC. There's now a dam across it, and the Kazakhs are trying to rehabilitate their side. Initially, what it had been during Soviet times was they were basically draining the Aral Sea to feed cotton crops in Uzbekistan. So that's still happening on the Uzbek side. But in Kazakhstan, they recognize that, well, there's a lot of issues now with dust storms and dust bowls and all these sort of things. Plus, fishing was a big thing. So that's what's going on there. Far left, this is in Dushanbe in Tajikistan. So most of these places are places we stayed when we were traveling through. So this is hotel I stayed in, hotel I stayed in, hotel I stayed in, outside of the So I only stay in the best places. And again, here, I mean, obviously you can see a shower curtain. That doesn't need to be big to kind of, for you to appreciate the map of the world. And you kind of look at the toilet paper, which is sort of, maybe we can qualify it as toilet paper, maybe we can't. But you also look at sort of the mat, this sort of foamy, colorful, probably molding bath mat. So for me, these are the things that kind of, when you're able to see them large, they start to maybe make a bit more sense. On the far left here, this was in the Wakam corridor in Tajikistan. So this is a sort of a sliver of land right on the Afghan border. So the Afghan border is across Queen Street. So it's a river, it's quite close. So you have a lot of drug trafficking and drug trade that comes through this area. This particular guy, deceased, was part of that whole situation. This was his guest house that we were staying in. For me, though, all of that is kind of notwithstanding. So you kind of look and you get closer and you realize it's an embroidery, right? Like it's a hanging tapestry or carpet of this guy. And that's not, I mean, and that is what it is. I mean,
was it posthumous, this
yes.
embroidery? So this is to commemorate a dead, a fallen...
Yeah, so that's a good question. That was always my assumption, that was done after he had passed away. I don't know that for a fact, yeah. But that was my understanding, was that. What
was his role in the community before he was killed or died?
I mean, drug trade.
Large employer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Just like a drug lord? Like
yeah, I don't know as much biographical information on him. It was sort of told to us a bit on the slide in terms of this is where you're staying, this is who this guy was, by the way. And so I didn't ask too many questions about that. I mean, in that area, a lot of, you'll be driving along in your sort of Lada Niva, sort of small four-wheel Russian car, and you'll have these, black Mercedes blast past you without any plates on, in a very rural, out-of-the-way border kind of area. So, I mean, so that area of Tajikistan is right next to Afghanistan, so all the opium and the heroin would come through Tajikistan and then be funneled out into other areas. Through Iran and then up into Europe and things like that. So it was very much a channel sort of area.
What were you doing there, Andrew?
Indulging my passion. I mean,
so you weren't on assignment?
This was an assignment I had given myself. So this was a project that I wanted to do. So there was 2 trips that went through. This initial trip was about 7 or 8 weeks through all these Central Asian republics. Photographs. So this was all photographed large format. Color film, large format, all of this stuff. with the exception of that, which is medium format, but by and large, this is all large format. So that was initially the project. It was just an area of the world that had always fascinated me. I think photographers are always wanting to kind of go to new places and do something that hasn't been done before, and everything's been done before, and everyone's been everywhere before. But that notwithstanding, I had never been to Central Asia. So for me, it's sort of, there was an imagination hook, so I wanted to go there. I subsequently went back on an assignment for Wallpaper magazine to Turkmenistan and spent a couple weeks there. Some of it on assignment for Wallpaper, and then tacking on some more time for myself.
What did they ask you to do, Wallpaper, when you were in Turkmenistan?
It was kind of the opposite situation. I went to them and said, you need to do a story on Turkmenistan. And they said, okay.
Like which aspect?
I mean, so Wallpaper is architecture design. It was in their travel section, which they used to have, which they don't have anymore. So, I mean, the conversation was literally this. You should do a story on Turkmenistan.
Like
okay.
Cool places to go in Turkmenistan?
Yeah, I mean, so we did, they were the first magazine that had done a feature on North Korea.
Okay.
And so I think that for them aesthetically, and for me as well, there's this synergy of, wow, there's a crazy dictator in like a part of the world, and there's all sorts of like, I mean, he has like a triple life-size gold statue of himself that revolves with the sun. I know you're thinking we all should. But I mean, that for me, when there's kind of an authoritarian regime and sort of Soviet architecture and things that are falling apart, I mean, that for me is just a gold mine. So that was, I mean, they just gave me free rein on that. They said, okay, off you go. And so then I just shot what had caught my eye to begin with, is what I shot. And so then we just came back with that, and then they ran a feature on that. So that's the general synopsis of everything.
So would you say that you set yourself the task of getting local color and things that you would see out of the corner of your eye in Central Asia? Like you were specifically looking for the quotidian and the like normal people?
I do want to interfere here because this is contact. And so the reason these prints are so amazing, and you have a lot of photographers in this crowd, is because it's 4x5. That's a big negative. So when you blow that negative up, all that information comes up. And this is what you see with these prints. You're very used to recently seeing the new wave of digital imaging, and that you have to depend on the person knowing something about Lightroom or Photoshop. Good luck with that. So these are like really the 4x5 images. So you see the color. I had a filmmaker in here who actually thought he painted the color on because she has not seen, you know, film images when they're blown up 60x47 like these are. So that is a real extra treat that we have tonight, is to see how great these images look when they're blown up.
I think in terms of the content and stuff like that, I mean, I think that for me, when you have your own projects that you give yourself and your own projects that you're working on, you're not beholden to anyone.
Right.
And so for me, it was just like, what's interesting, what excites me, what makes me laugh. And so I think that was all that, there wasn't any grand, you know, scheme to it. It was just like, this is really great. Yeah. Let's take a picture. And so for me, that was all that there was to it.
And did you perceive, or do you perceive that there was a dearth of humorous images about countries that we in the West consider to be war-torn or, you know, under duress?
Well, I would say a couple things. I would say none of these countries are war-torn. And I think that that's a very different sort of subject, and I think it needs to be treated maybe aggressively. I think one of the things that you can come across in countries like this is sort of a cheap humor. Which is sort of like a gimmicky, like, you know, ha ha ha, like look how terrible this is, or things like that. And for me, that wasn't what I was trying to portray. I think for me, it's more, I mean, all of these things are happening. I'm not, you know, it's sort of, so for me, I think the approach is more documentary. And it just happens to be how I see things. Collector will plexi it, absolutely. But I think that in a gallery setting initially, I just think that they look a lot better.
One more question before we move on, because I think you're getting.
No, they asked away. It was fine.
I'm noticing what looks like an electrical wire leading into what is a shower. Is that what it was?
Shower quickly. It looks like, I mean, I think it's the heater.
Boiler.
So this would be the boiler for the hot water. Yeah. Or jump when you shower.
Well, I hope you'll join me in thanking Andrew, Elaine, and Gary for having us.
And there are drinks if you guys, I mean, the alcohol is not going to drink itself, so please help yourself.
I don't want Elaine cursing me for drinking her dry with this entourage, but some of us may come back and talk to you at greater length.
Please.
I'm sure there are people here who would like to do that.
Please.
And thank you very much.
Well, thank you guys for making the time to come.